Hi all, it's Nutribullet with Burr here, Burr, and today I'm making a series of mini videos on fortification of food and how that might be linked to obesity and also how it might be making us sick. I just want to clarify, I'm talking mostly about synthetic forms of the vitamins. Obviously, there can be an overdose from obsessively eating too much of any one food can give us an overdose of any micronutrient. But this is mostly about the fortification of food and then also about the overuse of supplements that we can get over the counter. Okay, so what are fortified foods? Fortified foods have added vitamins and minerals found in cereals, juices, breads, plant milks, snack bars, marketed as healthier options, which is not necessarily true. We might think that all these plant milks, they have replaced vitamin D, calcium, some B vitamins are actually really beneficial for us, and that's not necessarily true. All of these cereals are all fortified, so are all flours and breads, even the sourdoughs are all fortified as a government mandate in the UK and in many countries. Okay, so fortification of food, according to the World Health Organization, is a practice of deliberately increasing the content of micronutrients, such as vitamins and minerals, in an attempt to improve the overall nutritional quality of that food. Some of those nutrients may be lost during the processing of the food, and it also helps low-income families who can't afford whole foods to actually get the recommended daily allowance of micronutrients. Okay, so it's very hot today. So too much of a good thing. So according to the Environmental Working Group, nutrients are essential, but excess can harm kids, elderly, and pregnant women. Government policies and marketing push extra fortification. Many children consume too much of certain nutrients. Overconsumption can cause hidden health risks. So I think that's the key, overconsumption, and we're not even aware that we're overconsuming many of these vitamins because they're added into food. And we'll look at how easily it is to overconsume these foods. So when vitamins turn toxic, so these are the ones we'll be looking at because these are the ones that are generally found in the fortified foods. So vitamin D, zinc, retinol, which is vitamin A, niacin, which is B vitamin B3, and then the B vitamins also. So, some of the nasty side effects are liver damage and skeletal abnormalities. So it's a band-aid approach, basically. So the fortification of food happened way back in 1924 when in different areas in America and different countries, there were belts where people started to develop swellings in their neck, something called goiter, which is an enlarged thyroid gland due to an iodine deficiency. And then they started to add iodine into the salt to resolve that problem. And then in 1933, following that, they fortified dairy products with vitamin D, and then following on throughout the process, other fortifications happen with the B vitamins. And then with the big vegan movement, obviously there is a need to fortify with vitamin B12 because that is the only way that vegans can actually get it is through fortification or supplementation. So we're looking today at vitamin A. So what's the function of vitamin A? Let's look at that first. So firstly, I'd say it's a fat-soluble vitamin. So if you're taking vitamin A, it should be taken with fat-soluble foods. So foods that are high in fat to actually make sure you can absorb it. It's not something that most of us would recommend to supplement because it can become toxic through supplementation in synthetic form. So it's responsible for immune function, cellular communication, growth and development, male and female reproduction, cell growth and differentiation, has key role in eyes, lung, heart, and other organs. So we already said it was fat-soluble vitamin. Deficiency can cause inability to see low and darkness, so low light and darkness. It's called xerophthalmia, I can't really say it. Abnormal lung development, respiratory disease, and increased risk of anemia and death. So clearly we need to get this balance of all these micronutrients correct, but too little or too much of anything actually can cause a disease state. So there is something called chronic hypervitaminosis, which is being seen now more and more due to the availability of supplements across the counter that you can just pick up and throw in your basket. Lots of gummies available from stores like Holland and Barrett that are being promoted as healthy for our kids. Also, you know, kids are being targeted to actually have these supplements. Parents are convinced that, you know, that their diets are not substantial, so they're being really targeted as a population for marketing. So parents need to be careful that, you know, they're actually recognizing how much of any vitamin is in those supplements, and then on those actual plant-based milks, which are really becoming very popular, and plant-based replacing animal product foods. The other thing we need to look at is the quantities of food that we're eating. So if we're eating a limited diet, a restricted diet, so if we're following something like a carnivore diet, where we're eating nose to tail, head to toe in the same effect, nose to tail, and we're eating a lot of organ meats, especially liver, that's very high, and you know, you can very quickly become to a toxic level or hypervitaminosis, especially the fat-soluble vitamins. And today, as I said, we're talking about vitamin A. So excess accumulates in the liver, causing elevated enzymes. It also causes elevated triglycerides. You can get symptoms like headaches, dry skin, blurred vision, nausea, dizziness, aching muscles, painful muscles, difficult with coordination, fatigue, depression, dry, peeling skin, drowsiness. And then the toxicity effect would be drowsiness leading to coma and death. So hopefully that's something that's very rare, but there have been cases, which I will show later, of the hypervitaminosis. Synthetic vitamin A is also known as isotretinoin, which is found in a drug which is prescribed through dermatologists generally, hopefully not through GPs, for acne, and it's called Roaccutane. And before somebody is prescribed that, they usually need to have an FBC done to check for anemia. They also have to have a cholesterol test and should have triglycerides checked, because it can affect both of those. And they also have liver functions to make sure that they have no problems with a function of their liver already previously elevated liver enzymes. And then if it's a teenage girl who's been prescribed it, they should do a pregnancy test before prescribing. And good practice is to do 30 days, do a test, don't prescribe, repeat the pregnancy test again 30 days later to ensure 100% that that person isn't pregnant, because too much vitamin A can be teratogenic for the fetus, causing malformations and in the embryonic stage. Okay, so it's all about the balance. So I'm not against supplementation. I'm a nutritionist and a personal trainer, and I've used supplements myself, but I do think even I use them as a band-aid approach, and they don't really resolve the problem, because you still have root cause. If you have a gut dysbiosis, or you have food allergies or intolerances, or you're on a restricted diet like carnivore, keto, elimination diets, autoimmune diets, all of which are all very restricted, then the supplement is really a band-aid approach, which gives you some energy, helps get you through it. But you know, at the end of the day, you still go around in a vicious circle, and you haven't achieved anything really, except spend a lot of money and not really got to the root cause of what's going on. So let's move on. And I could talk a lot about that, because I have so much experience myself on that, and getting, you know, listening to other big influencers on social media and following them and getting sucked into all that Kool-Aid is quite dangerous. So I have a different lens and a different perspective now after doing so many different diets. So this is why I'm making all these video series, so that you can actually go away and make your more informed decision yourself, and that you're not just following one or two particular influencers and swallowing the Kool-Aid. Think outside the box. So vitamin A, there are two types. So we have the preformed, which is retinol, And then you have the pro-vitamin A, which is beta carotene. So retinol is the preformed, so there's no conversion needed for that. And you find that in animal sources like liver, eggs, dairy, fish oil. So I've just got pictures here. So cod liver oil is a really high source of it. And liver is the highest source. And it's the active form of vitamin A, stored in the liver and can accumulate to toxic levels if consumed in excess. The beta carotenes, which is the pro-vitamin A, is sourced in plant foods. So if you think of all the orange vegetables like sweet potatoes, pumpkins, carrots, spinach, kale, all of those are good sources of beta carotene. But I'd like to stipulate that not everybody converts efficiently from beta carotene to retinol because of a polymorphism in a gene called BCMO1. I don't know a huge amount about that polymorphism, but just to be aware that not everybody actually converts efficiently. So that's really important for vegans to actually understand. You may just have the beta carotene from the orange vegetables, which can build up in your skin and turn your skin orange, which I think has happened to a few people who used a lot of carrot juice. Okay, so moving on. So the recommended daily allowance for vitamin A, let's look at the 19 to 50-year-olds. So 900 micrograms for males, 700 micrograms for females, and then if you're pregnant, 770 micrograms is the recommended daily allowance for pregnant women. So keep that in mind. So 900 at the top end is the daily allowance. So then I just thought it would be interesting to do how hypervitaminosis might start at breakfast, our first meal of the day. So a cup of whole milk, 2 medium slices of toast with margarine, because margarine is often has vitamin A added into it. A Boots multi-supplement multivitamin, which has vitamin A and has pretty much the total daily allowance in the Boots one, which is just a standard Boots multivitamin. And then the Fortified cereal, I just chose Special K, 2 cups, but generally people probably wouldn't measure 2 cups. They'd probably eat way more than 2 cups because they'd fill their bowl up. So let's look at the dose of vitamin A you would have just from that one meal. So from that one meal, you're looking at the recommended daily allowance. You're over 100%. So you're at 109%, it's 983, so even higher because women are only at 700 micrograms and men were at 900. So it's just over for men and it's much more for women. So you can see then if you continued throughout the day and you had your eggs, you had your fish, you had your spinach, your sweet potato, you maybe a cod liver oil tablet, you can see how then you could easily over the years have that build up in your liver and have too much of it. So the body can only utilize so much of these vitamins and minerals at one time, and because it's fat soluble you can't pee it out. So it's absorbed in the small intestine and then its metabolites are cleared through the bile in the liver. And if you're on a low fat diet, which many people are, or a no fat diet, bile flow is reduced and limited, and then it's hard for you to clear any of these out of the liver. So now I'm just going to look at 3 case studies here. There was a convent in Texas which had unvaccinated children show signs of liver problems after taking large amounts of vitamin A. So they were using this as to prevent measles, and listening to people like RFK Jr., who promotes the use of vitamin A, supposedly. I don't want to quote unquote because this is what I've read online and there's a lot of conspiracy theories, but to prevent measles. And it does help reduce the severity of the measles, but it doesn't actually prevent death. So really, if you're a parent, you need to do your due diligence and make an informed decision, because large amounts of it have caused liver problems in these children. And remember, children have smaller bodies, smaller BMIs. It's harder for them to get rid of excess of these vitamins in their little bodies, and so they become quite toxic to a toxic level quite quickly when having too much and having it repeated over a long period of time. A 20-year-old Japanese woman had been eating pumpkin. She had a limited range of foods over 2 years. Her family noticed that that she had developed low-grade fever, lymphedema, colitis, which is cracking and drying of the skin, corner of the mouth, dry skin, and headaches. She showed that she had hepatic injury due to secondary to an eating disorder. So again, very key. When we're on these very restricted diets with very minimum choice of food, or a very narrow range of food, we're not meeting all our micronutrients and vitamins, or the daily allowance of these. And the other thing is that we might be getting too much, because she was eating lots of pumpkin and less of other foods. So then she had excess vitamin A, because she obviously was a fairly good converter from beta carotene to retinol. So that's the danger of, you know, working with a nutritionist or a naturopath who actually keeps you in this restriction for very long periods of time. They should only be short periods of time, and you should be able to gradually increase the number or introduce new foods to increase and expand the number of nutrients you're getting, and also that they're not selling you a supplement to take in place of these foods, because, you know, that's a way for them to make extra money. And just be careful that you don't get, you know, sucked into doing this for several years and you're not making any progress, and you actually haven't dealt with the root cause as to why you're actually you're in this state. And in this case, it was because of anorexia, so a restricted number of calories going in and a restricted narrow range of foods, which caused the overconsumption of vitamin A. An 18-year-old woman who had been taking vitamin A for unspecified skin disorders, she was up to 2,000 IUs daily for 16 months, developed muscular dystrophy and fatigue, which was worsened by exercise. A liver biopsy showed cirrhosis and fatty changes. A 63-year-old man who took 4,000 IUs following a respiratory tract infection, and he had had TB previously. He's presented with the dry skin, general fatigue, abdominal swelling, and showed marked cirrhosis. The 31-year-old woman with psoriasis was treated, and on week 3, she developed fatigue, severe headaches, loss of appetite, weight loss, nausea and vomiting, thirst and pain in both legs. After 4 weeks, she developed jaundice and was admitted for evaluation. She developed hemolytic anemia, and she showed scarring of the liver. And also intrahepatic cholestasis, where the bile was not able to flow through the liver. So again, it's all ends up in either, too much, the toxicity ends up in damaging of the liver, because that's where it's stored. So the other thing to point out, that research has shown that people who supplement with vitamin A, who are smokers and who have been exposed to asbestos, which is a really important point, they are more prone to lung cancer. So that's, you know, important if you're taking these supplements and you're a smoker, that you're aware of that risk. Okay, so I think that's all I've got to say about vitamin A. You also need other nutrients in that conversion, which was something I didn't mention. So to convert your beta carotene to retinol, you need zinc and you need iron. So if you have iron deficiency or you're low in zinc, you won't convert very efficiently. So it's important to eat foods that are good sources of iron and zinc, because it's needed for the enzyme activity to do that conversion to retinol. I think my point here is that fortified foods, please be careful. I would consider them pretty much ultra processed foods. Even our sourdoughs in the UK, all are fortified with synthetic vitamins, and many of the flours are as well. Now in Italy, you can buy Italian breads here, which are not fortified, but they do have yeast in, obviously, but they're not fortified with synthetic vitamins. And if you find you are overeating a certain food, you might consider Is that something to do with those synthetic vitamins that's causing you appetite to increase? And we'll talk more about that in another video. So I hope you enjoyed this series. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends and family if you enjoyed it. And I'll be back hopefully next week with another new video on this series. I don't know how many there will be, 4, I think at least. And then hopefully we'll learn about the vitamins that we're going to discuss here, so we have an understanding. We'll learn together, their functions, what happens when we're deficient, and how we can optimize our health through using whole foods rather than using the synthetic forms of these supplements. So thank you for watching. Please drop me a comment under the video if you'd consider, if you'd like to train with me with kettlebell in my class on Zoom. I would love to have you. If you find you're lacking motivation, or you just need somebody to give you that extra push, you want a bit of an extra sweat, or you can't come up with crazy workouts, I'm the girl for that. And if you'd like to work with me on nutrition, you can WhatsApp me, and you can have a 15 to 20 minute free telephone call just to work out if I'm a good match for you. So please don't hesitate, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Ciao, bye.